There is a power source sitting underneath every campsite, every backyard, every field, and every forest on the surface of this planet. It requires no fuel. It requires no sunlight. It has no moving parts, no batteries to replace, no panels to clean, and no cord to plug in. Two pieces of metal pushed 4 inches into wet soil. That is the entire device. It generates real, measurable, sustained electrical current from the electrochemical potential of the Earth itself, and it has done so reliably since before the Roman Empire paved its first road. The $150 billion global battery industry sells you devices that degrade, leak, expire, and fill landfills by the billions every single year. They have spent decades making sure you never learn that the ground beneath your feet is already a functioning electrical generator waiting for 2 pieces of scrap metal. This knowledge was not lost. It was not made obsolete by better technology. It was quietly removed from textbooks, absent from every hardware store shelf, and missing from every mainstream survival guide published in the last 50 years. Not because it stopped working, because it never stopped working, and that is exactly the problem. This is the story of the Earth battery, the oldest electrical generator in recorded human history, and the secret the energy industry buried beneath your feet. Welcome to Forbidden Camping. If these stories matter to you, the subscribe button and the bell are the best way to make sure this knowledge survives. This is where we open the vaults the industry welded shut. Let me take you back to where this begins. Not in a Silicon Valley laboratory, not in a government research facility. In the sand of ancient Mesopotamia, roughly 250 years before the birth of Christ. In 1938, archaeologists excavating a site near Baghdad uncovered a clay jar roughly 5 inches tall. Inside was a copper cylinder with an iron rod suspended at its center, sealed with an asphalt stopper. The artifact dated to approximately 250 BC. When researchers at General Electric later filled a replica with grape juice as the electrolyte, it produced between 1.5 and 2 volts of sustained electrical current. 2 volts from a clay jar. 2,000 years before Alessandro Volta built the first modern battery in 1800. 2,000 years before Thomas Edison lit a single bulb. Someone in ancient Mesopotamia had already discovered that 2 dissimilar metals separated by an acidic liquid generate electrical potential. This is not a theory or an archaeological interpretation. It is a measured, replicated, laboratory-confirmed result that has never been refuted. The principle has not changed in 23 centuries. Civilizations collapsed and rebuilt around it without knowing its name. The chemistry was always there, waiting in the soil, in the groundwater, in every patch of mineral-rich earth on this planet. Fast forward to Edinburgh in 1841. A Scottish clockmaker named Alexander Bain is working alone in a small workshop. Not wealthy, not connected to the scientific establishment, but possessed by an obsession with electricity that his contemporaries describe as bordering on madness. One afternoon, Bain drives 2 metal rods into the damp soil behind his workshop. 1 copper, 1 zinc. He connects a wire between them and attaches a measuring instrument. The needle moves. Not a flicker, not an artifact. A steady, sustained electrical current flowing from the Earth itself without any external power source, without any fuel, without any mechanical input whatsoever. Bain files a patent that same year. Patent number 9363. The Earth battery. He uses it to power his electric clock mechanisms and then scales the concept dramatically. By 1843, Bain has demonstrated that Earth batteries can drive telegraph signals across miles of open land with no connection to any conventional power station. The telegraph is the internet of the 19th century, the nervous system of industrial civilization connecting cities and nations across continents. And Bain has just proven it can run entirely on dirt. The United States government took notice. In 1848, federal telegraph lines and sections of the American network were powered using Earth battery arrays documented in official reports filed with the Smithsonian Institution. This was not fringe experimentation. This was federal infrastructure built on soil and scrap metal. Before I continue, I need to tell you something important. This video is only the surface of what the industry has hidden from you. I spent months collecting everything they buried into one place. Passive wall systems that heat and cool entire structures without electricity or fuel. Water purification methods that engineers field tested and could not believe actually worked. with restoration formulas that have been suppressed since 1939, fire techniques that military units classified as too effective to release publicly, food preservation methods that keep emergency supplies viable for decades without refrigeration or power. All of it is inside the complete forbidden camping vault. Over 10 guides in one place. No filler. Every page built for immediate action. The link is in the description right now. But stay here. The science behind this free power source is about to make the battery industry very uncomfortable. Here is exactly why this works, and why no corporation on Earth can stop it from working. The principle is called galvanic potential, and it is one of the most thoroughly documented phenomena in the history of electrochemistry. When two metals with different positions on the electrochemical activity series are placed in contact through an electrolyte, electrons flow spontaneously from the more reactive metal to the less reactive one. This is not a hypothesis. It is a fundamental law of physics, taught in every first-year chemistry course on the planet, confirmed by over 2 centuries of experimental data, and completely impossible to patent because it is a law of nature. Soil is a natural electrolyte. It contains dissolved mineral salts, organic acids produced by decomposing plant matter, water held in capillary pores, and billions of microorganisms whose metabolic activity enhances ionic conductivity continuously. Every handful of forest floor, every garden bed, every streamside bank is a chemical environment perfectly suited to drive a galvanic reaction between dissimilar metals. The United States Department of Agriculture published conductivity surveys showing that most temperate forest soils in North America measure between 200 and 800 microsiemens per centimeter of electrical conductivity. That is well within the operational range for sustained galvanic output. The voltage a single cell produces depends entirely on which metals you choose. Zinc paired with copper generates approximately 1.1 volts per cell. Magnesium paired with copper pushes closer to 2 volts. Aluminum and copper sit at roughly 1.5 volts. A single cell in isolation produces modest current, but connect cells in series and the voltages stack. 10 zinc-copper cells wired in series produce between 8 and 11 volts, depending on soil conditions. 20 cells push past 20 volts. Add a $2 voltage regulator from any electronic supplier, and you have a functioning USB charging circuit powered entirely by the ground beneath your feet. Researchers at the University of Wisconsin published measurements of sustained galvanic current from soil-based cells over a continuous 90-day period. Degradation across the entire test period was less than 12%. Compare that to a standard alkaline battery sitting and used on a shelf, which loses up to 20% of its stored charge through self-discharge before it ever powers a single device. The Earth battery does not self-discharge because it does not store energy. It generates it continuously from an electrochemical reaction that renews itself as long as the soil stays moist. A research team at MIT demonstrated in 2015 that microbial fuel cells operating on an identical galvanic principle could power agricultural field sensors continuously for over a year with zero maintenance input. In 2012, a Harvard University researcher published findings on enhanced soil-based microbial cells that were cited over 300 times in peer-reviewed academic literature. 300 citations. 0 commercial products. The knowledge is confirmed, replicated, and published in the most respected scientific journals in the world. And you cannot buy a single Earth battery kit at any retailer anywhere on Earth. That is not an accident.